Good evening. We'll just give it a second for attendees to join us before we start. Good evening. For those of you who are just joining us, we'll be starting our forum in a few minutes, a few seconds actually. I see some other folks still joining us. Welcome. Good evening. We'll give it one more minute. Good evening. Welcome for those of you who are just joining us. We'll get started in just a second. I still see some folks joining us, so we'll just start in just a minute. All right. I think we are ready to go. Welcome, everyone, to the Board of Education Forum, sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Baltimore County and the Randallstown NAACP chapter. My name is Erica McDonald, and I am the co-president of the League of Women Voters of Baltimore County. We're pleased to present this opportunity for the voters of Baltimore County to meet the candidates and hear what they have to say about important issues facing our county. The League and the NAACP are nonprofit, nonpartisan political organizations. Neither organization supports nor opposes candidates for public office, and both do not support political parties. The League encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. The NAACP seeks to assure that African Americans, as well as all citizens, participate in our democracy as active and informed voters. A few housekeeping details before we begin tonight. The forum this evening is a webinar, which means that the audience members can submit questions to the hosts in the chat, but cannot pose questions verbally or enable their video. During the forum, candidates will respond to questions, but this is not a debate, and the time will not be provided for candidates to rebut each other's responses. Questions will not be specific to any one candidate. Civility is expected, and candidates who behave disrespectfully, such as talking over other candidates, will be warned and may be muted or removed from forum. Please note that no unauthorized recordings of this forum are permitted, and its content is the property of the League of Women Voters of Baltimore County and the Randallstown NAACP, and may not be used without permission. A recording will be available after the forum. Our timekeeper this evening is Diane Aschenbrenner. Our question facilitator is Nora Miller-Smith. And our moderator tonight is Dr. Barbara Desmond of the NAACP Randallstown branch and the League of Women Voters of Baltimore County. And with that, I will hand it over to Dr. Desmond to begin our forum. Just let me spotlight her. Take it away.
Good evening and welcome. The Baltimore County Board of Education is responsible for selection of a school superintendent to lead the school system. Also, the board develops and oversees education policies to guide the operation of the school system. Our candidates tonight are J. Michael Colllins, Robin Harvey, Samay Singh Kindra, Cory Koons, Jane Lichter, George Roycroft, Brenda Hatcher-Savoy, Lashaune Stitt, and Autrese M. Thornton. All candidates in districts with more than 2 candidates running for this election were invited. The candidates will each make a 2-minute opening statement as well as a 2-minute closing statement after the Q&A period. The order of the opening statements was determined by the alphabetical order of their last names. The closing statement will be in reverse order from the opening statement. After the opening statements, each of the candidates will have the opportunity to respond to questions. Candidates will not be allowed to give rebuttals. We will begin with questions submitted by the League of Women Voters and the Randallstown NAACP, followed by questions from the audience. Audience members can submit their questions via the chat, where those questions will be collected and vetted and passed to the moderator. Our question screeners will review the questions for repetition and choose them for variety. Audience members will not be able to see the chat and what other people are submitting. Candidates will have 2 minutes to respond to the questions, and time limits will be strictly enforced. A timekeeper will alert the speaker when they have 30 seconds left, and when time is up, at which time the speaker must stop speaking within 10 seconds. Our goal is to end this forum at 8:00 p.m. and appreciate everyone's help in achieving this goal. We will now have 2-minute opening statements from each of the candidates. I will call on the candidates now. Mr. Colllins.
Dr. Desmond, I don't see Mr. Colllins on, so let's move on. And if he joins afterwards, we can add him in.
Ms. Harvey, your opening statement, please. 2 minutes. Ms. Harvey, begin.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters and the Randallstown NAACP for having this forum to give us an opportunity to talk about and share our thoughts about education in Baltimore County. My name is Robin Harvey, and I'm a candidate for the Baltimore County Board of Education in District 1. To tell you a little bit about myself, I am a social worker by training and profession, and for over 20 years, I've worked to improve the health, well-being, and safety of children and families in Maryland. Being a social worker gives me a unique vantage point in problem solving. I'm trained to meet people where they are with a particular focus on listening so that we can begin to solve problems in a way that meets everyone's needs. I apologize, the light in this room is automatic. I continue to work in my community to help ensure that everyone has a good quality of life. I am the co-chair of the Randallstown NAACP Security Mall Task Force that works so hard to get revitalization happening around Security Square Mall, and now we are seeing positive movement there. I'm also the chair of the Environmental Justice Subcommittee, working to create more green and open space in our communities. As the District 1 Commissioner on the Baltimore County Commission for Women, I work to support and advocate for legislation that improves outcomes
30 seconds.
and by extension, their families. As a former guidance counselor for Boston Public Schools, I know the importance of education in the lives of children. And as an indicator of their future success, I really believe that every child has a right to a quality education and that as taxpayers, we should see a return on our investment. As a Baltimore County resident, I have a personal interest in the success of our public schools. As a social worker, I'm ethically bound by the core values of service, justice, dignity, and worth of a person. And as a parent, it's important to me that every child has the opportunity to receive a quality education in an environment that fosters a love of learning. If I'm elected to the Baltimore County Board of Education, that will be my focus. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Kindra, your opening statement, please, sir.
Yeah, hey there, folks. My name is Samay Singh Kindra, and I'm running to represent District 4 on the Baltimore County Board of Education. I thought you guys a little bit about myself. I'm a lifelong Baltimore County resident. I'm a proud K-12 BCPS graduate. I went to Newtown Elementary, Sudbrook Middle, and Western Tech High School. Currently, I'm a law student at Maryland Law, and I've been active in our community since high school, really, to enact some meaningful changes in our neighborhoods. Specifically in the area of education, I've worked with the BCPS Social Studies Department to bring in some national civil rights groups to help make our curriculum a bit more inclusive. And I've worked in Annapolis to write and pass a bill when I was an undergrad that helped reduce the cost of textbooks for students at the university level. And now I'm looking to serve on the Board of Education so that I can help bring a new perspective of someone who really understands these issues firsthand as a recent former student, and who really understands what the world demands of young people today and can make sure that that is the education that we're providing to our students. It is really those experiences and that vision that has guided my principles that I hope to bring to the school board and that will guide our vision for BCPS. And there's three of them. The first one is student well-being. The second is equity and inclusion. And the third is educator advocacy. And really, those are all based on the idea of preparing all of our students to succeed no matter what they go on to do, which is why two that I like to highlight under the student well-being principle are the ideas of financial literacy and mental health, because I really believe that if we can teach our students how to manage their health and manage their wealth, that we're going to set them up to succeed no matter what they go on to do after graduating from our schools.
30 seconds.
I'm really excited. Thank you. I'm really excited for the opportunity to serve on the board and really understand that coming out of this pandemic, we have a real opportunity to reshape and reimagine what our public education system looks like, and to make sure that we are providing an education to our students that is truly a 21st century education that is preparing them to succeed in a world that's ever changing. And I hope to collaborate with stakeholders like the League of Women Voters and the NAACP of Randallstown to make sure that as we chart that future for our schools, that we're working collaboratively with stakeholders. And thank you again so much for having me tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Coons.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for putting this event on, League of Women Voters and NAACP. I am a parent, point blank. I'm a parent of an 11-year-old and a 8-year-old, and I've watched what has gone on pre-COVID, post-COVID, and I think we can do better. I think the reimagining of the way things can be taught and some of the structures and a better approach that's more effective, not just for the top third or the bottom third, but everyone. Everyone should have an equal opportunity to a successful education. That goes from, the kids who can't ride the bus anymore because it doesn't show up, to the G&T child who doesn't have an opportunity because there's too many disruptions in the class. The core focus of what I want to work on is sort of the safety and security on the outside and inside of the building, making sure that kids have an opportunity to learn, making sure they have an opportunity to stay focused, an opportunity to be fed. If food is part of their day, there's kids that do not have meals at home. The school system is supposed to help with that. And that's been a clear and present failure, as well as transportation. And school performance has been, a really disappointing thing. I'm a scientist. I'm not I'm an analytics guy. So I want to look for ways to improve the processes and make it more resilient and more fault tolerant so that we don't have to worry about everyone failing. My name's Cory Koons. I'm running for Board of Education District 1 for Baltimore County. And
Thank you. Ms. Lichter.
Good evening, and thank you to the NAACP of Randallstown and the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum tonight. My name is Jane Lichter, and I'm running for District 2. I want to describe the who, the why, and the what. Who am I? I'm a wife, mother of 2 children, and the grandmother of 1 wonderful grandson. I've lived my entire life in Baltimore County, and I worked my entire career in BCPS until my retirement last June. I started as a special education teacher, working in both self-contained classrooms and in resource capacities, assisting students and teachers in their general ed classrooms. I've worked in curriculum and instruction, specifically English language arts, as a resource teacher and coordinator. I was the very proud principal of Lansdowne Elementary School for 7 years. And for the last 8 years of my career, I was an executive director, supporting, coaching, and supervising principals throughout the county. My experiences have provided me vast firsthand insight into the daily work of students, teachers, support staff, and administrators. So why am I running for the Board of Ed? I am deeply committed to BCPS, its students, and its staff, and I'm passionate about doing the work to restore BCPS to a system of high academic excellence. Every student has the right to graduate from BCPS with a transcript that reflects coursework and skills necessary to be successful and productive citizens. And that leads to the what. What would be my priorities as a member of the Board of Ed? One, to improve academic achievement for all.
30 seconds.
The board must have a sense of urgency and relentless focus on improving outcomes for all of our students. Two, we must ensure safe teaching environments for students and staff. Our classrooms must allow our teachers to teach and our students to learn. And three, we must increase our educator applicant pool, hiring high qualified educators and providing them and our veteran educators with the support they need in order to ensure career satisfaction and longevity in the system. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Roycroft. Your opening statements, please, sir.
Good evening, everyone. I am George Roycroft. I'm running for Baltimore County School District 1. I am a husband, father, grandfather, mentor. I'm a coach, and most of all, I'm a teacher. I've been teaching in Baltimore City Public Schools for 19 years, 10 years with the Baltimore Teachers Union and as the teacher representative. I've been Teacher of the Year in 5 of the 5 schools where I've taught. I'm a Gulf War veteran. I graduated from Mount St. Joe High School here in Baltimore City. I'm a product of Coppin State University, have a degree in elementary education and a master's degree in educational leadership and supervision from Capella University. I coach several sports for over 25 years, from recreation, from 5 and 6-year-olds up to high school. I am a proud recipient of the Arbutus Athletic Association Hall of Fame for coaching sports, and I'm the president of and founder of the Baltimore Gators Girls Lacrosse program here in Baltimore City. Why do I want to be on the board? I want to share my experiences in public education, my time, my thoughts. I can represent the community and ensure that others have a voice in making educational decisions. I would like to listen and support the interests of teachers, administrators, and parents. I want to create strong ties between the school board and stakeholders in the
30
community.
seconds.
I want to help influence the district budget where taxpayers spend their money. I believe students should get a good quality public education for free, and I'm going to do all I can to make sure that they get it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Hatcher-Savoy.
Savoy. Good evening, everyone. Good evening to the League of Women Voters and to the NAACP. Thank you for this great opportunity to be here this evening. My name is Dr. Brenda Hatcher-Savoy, and I believe that we need, I'm running in District 4 for Baltimore County. I believe that we need experienced leaders who can put aside ambition and partisanship and focus on what is best for our children, and I believe that I'm that person. As a lifelong educator, I will bring a voice from the classroom, administration, and MSDE. You see, I served at each of these levels in education. Serving on the school board will allow me to bring a wide variety of experience and deep knowledge of education. My voice will be a voice to ensure equity and diversity in board policies. My voice will also be a voice to ensure all zip codes get an opportunity to get a world-class education. With your help and support as a member of the Baltimore County School Board, I will lead the way to change policies that help students graduate who are career and or college ready. I would also like to say that I am the true community activist and that I serve on the Baltimore County Commission for Women, the Baltimore County Board of Human Trafficking, and I'm a member of Baltimore County Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I believe, like Peter Drucker says, the most important thing in communication is to hear what really isn't being said.
30 seconds.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Ms. Hatcher-Savoy, before we continue, I would like to apologize for mispronouncing your name.
Oh, that's quite all right. I'm sorry. Everybody does. It's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm fine.
Our next candidate is Dr. Stitt.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Lashaune Stitt. I would like to thank the League of Women Voters as well as the NAACP of Randallstown for inviting me. Before I begin with my opening statement, I would like to acknowledge the land that I'm calling from, the Susquehanna territory, and representing the indigenous people of our country. I would like to acknowledge the land that we are sitting on right now. I am a veteran educator, parent, wife. I am a coach, a school builder, a jack of all trades, if I may say. I'm originally from Harlem, New York. I've been in Baltimore County for 12 years now. And I served as not only a classroom teacher throughout my career, but I have also served as an assistant principal and helped other schools open in the New York, under the Small Schools Initiatives in New York, as well as in Richmond, Virginia. I am currently the executive director of my own educational consulting company, Educate the World, as well as Women of the World, which is an organization dedicated strictly for women and empowering and uplifting women in their roles that they play in society. My career spans over 23 years, and as I've stated, I have vast experience. I will just focus on the experience that I have had in Baltimore County as an advocate and parent. I started with the PTA at Wellwood International.
30 seconds.
Wow, that was fast. Wellwood International, Pikesville Middle. I'm also a member of the Pikesville Schools Coalition and the Northwest Area Education Advisory Council, and I've also served as a participant with Parent University. My platform is strictly about diversity in the curriculum, as well as in the schools, equity, and school safety.
Thank you, Dr. Stitt.
Thank you.
Ms. Thornton, your opening statements, please.
Good evening. My name is Autrese Thornton, and I am running for Board of Education in District 4 in Baltimore County. First, I want to thank the League of Women Voters, as well as the Randallstown and NAACP for an opportunity to share why I am running for office. So I want to tell you a little bit about who I am. I am a mother of a Baltimore County Public School graduate. She graduated in 2014 from Western Tech, and she's also a graduate of Morgan State University. I am also a former teacher, special educator, assistant principal, special educator, librarian in Baltimore City and Baltimore County schools. Also a very active member in my community. I'm a faith-based leader, and I'm also a board certified coach. What I see as a formula for success and what I would like to build if elected to the Board of Education is the well-being of students and the safety of teachers and students, equitable opportunities for all students, including accessible programming. Would like to see increased student achievement and performance with policies and procedures in place to support effective learning. I would love to see more collaboration of our school board cohesiveness and more focused on what will benefit our students, and implementation of performance-based compensation for employees of the school system, and increased diversity among employees and administration, and building strategic relationships between the Board of Education and the school system. Most importantly, I am running because I have a passion and I am genuinely concerned for children. I think that my education and my expertise will be a wonderful asset to the school board as we talk about governance and my vote. And I think that, like I said, my experience and my education would allow me to make the best vote and the best choices for the students in my district. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we will move to the question and answer portion of the forum. During this session, if any of the candidates would like to have the question repeated, please inform. We'll now begin with the first question. How do your skills and experience prepare you for the duties of the Board of Education? Mr. Colllins?
Dr. Desmond, Mr. Colllins is still not here, so we can move on.
All right. Ms. Harvey?
Thank you for the question. So as I said earlier, I'm a social worker by training and profession. I'm also certified in results-based leadership and results-based accountability, which I use to teach nonprofits and other organizations how to move from talk to action. I think my particular skill set as a social worker allows me to engage in advocacy, to engage in negotiation, successful negotiation. I come from a perspective of it doesn't have to be either or, it can be both and. And I also come from a perspective of meeting people where they are. I think one of the things that challenges the Board of Education is really understanding that although people may approach you with frustration, anger, and vitriol, that it starts from a place that they're concerned about the education of their children. And when we all start there, we can then build from that. I believe in civility. I believe in treating people with dignity. And I believe that my skills in using data-driven practice, negotiation, and moving from results to action in very concrete ways will enable me to move the objectives of the school board forward and to improve the education of our children in Baltimore County.
Thank you. Mr. Kindra.
Thank you so much for the question. So I kind of alluded to this in my introduction, but I am a former student. So I graduated from Western Tech in 2016 after going to Newtown Elementary and Sudbrook Middle. And that's really unique. We haven't had that on the board before, that perspective. And what that perspective really allows is for someone who understands these issues firsthand. I experienced all these issues. And now after being out of the system 6, 7, 8 years, when I talk to my peers, it's evident what issues need to be addressed the most. Which is why when I talk to my peers who, like I said, are 6, 7, 8 years removed, the repeated issue that I see is that they don't know how to manage their health. They don't know how to manage their financial well-being, which is what has informed my student well-being principle of working on those two things to make sure that we teach students how to manage their health and manage their wealth. And that goes beyond just those two issues. Even when I look at the principle of equity and inclusion that I mentioned, really that is from my own experience. It wasn't easy growing up as a little brown boy in the early 2000s with the turban on, but that taught me a lot of things. It taught me the importance of having an inclusive environment to make sure that all students feel a part of their curriculum, to make sure that students understand their peers, that they know who they're going to school with. These are important things that I didn't experience. I know from my experience with my peers and younger siblings that is still an issue. And so that's really unique perspective of someone who experiences issues firsthand and now can, in retrospect, sort of see how can we address them in an efficient manner. And I really also want to emphasize the idea of having someone on the board who really understands what
30 seconds.
What young people are asked of today. When we enter the workforce, when we go to college or whatever it may be, the world demands a very unique skill set for young people today that they didn't demand 6, 7, even 8 years ago, even 2, 3 years ago. And so we really need to make sure is that as we come out of the pandemic and we sort of rethink a lot of our education system, we have to make sure that we are preparing our students for what the world demands of them today. And as a young person who's going through that, has gone through that, I think that perspective would be valuable on the board.
Thank you. Mr. Coons.
Thank you for the question. For me, it really comes down to my personal experiences, having grown up as a child who relied on the bus, who relied on school lunches to be able to think and focus in class. And now ending up where I am, which is as a business owner in Arbutus, in Lansdowne, being an active member of society and hiring these kids that have gone through the BCPS system and seeing where they have some deficiencies and where we certainly need to improve and where they excel. I think as a scientist, I would bring, very much a fresh look. I'm the only scientist on the panel. There's a lot of teachers, and that's fantastic. There's a lot of social work, and all those things are valuable. But as a scientist, I also work as a project manager. And one of the things that I have to do is understand where my strengths are and understand where my weaknesses are and rely on a strong team to actually get the project or the mission to completion. And that may be to rely on, people that I have very conflicting, philosophical stances on. But if it's for the betterment of the kids and for a clear mission to improve the school system and get these kids to be able to read and write and do math and be able to function as a society, that's where I'm going to focus is making sure that the project management part and the
30
collaboration
seconds.
isn't lost, in the infighting of the board and the infighting with the county commissioner's office and then at Greenwood campus. There's no cohesion right now with putting the children first and actually getting them the resources they need to succeed. Like Samay said, we really need to equip these children with better coping mechanisms, better life skills, so that we can generate a better future for all of them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Lichter.
Hi, thank you. So in addition to the experiences I described in my opening statement, I feel that my skills of active listening and reflective questioning and being able to engage in difficult conversations will enable me to be a very productive board member. My strength in teaching and learning will allow that focus to guide the work and to prioritize when board members are making policy decisions, when they're making process decisions, when they're deciding what to spend the money on. We need to be able to prioritize teaching and learning and improving student outcomes and ask those difficult questions. I can look at the data points and be able to say, are all of our student groups benefiting from what is being proposed? So listening to stakeholders, listening to administrators, listening to students, listening to parents, asking the right questions, asking for the data points, and then being able to synthesize that to make sure that we are on the right course to improving our outcomes for kids. We're not hearing enough about improving student achievement from the board. We very rarely hear them talk about what can we do for our students to increase their outcomes. We have to have a laser-like focus. We have to be ready to ask those questions. My work in schools on a daily basis and interacting will be the experiences and the skills to allow me to be a productive board member from day one. It's going to be a new board, but there's a huge sense of urgency. And I feel that the experiences I've had in BCPS will allow me to have that smooth transition and start that hard
30
work.
seconds.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Roycroft.
Thank you for the question. I'm an Army Gulf War veteran, so doing things under pressure is paramount. So I know the board has a lot of pressure now, so I expect it to happen. I have been teaching in Baltimore City schools for 19 years, so all my informed decisions are data driven. So without having that data to know what's going on, I just can't make a decision without being informed. I have had also leadership roles in Baltimore City schools. And having that leadership roles, you have to be able to get adults to work with you and not just for you. So you work together collaboratively to make decisions to what's best for students. I was also the union representative for the schools where I've taught, and being able to go fight for my teachers so that they can have a safe and secure and a good environment to work in. I listen to the needs of others and allow their voices to be heard, because if their voices isn't heard, it's mute. I can bridge the gap for the stakeholders to be involved in the educational process, which is what is really needed, because the community is where the kids come from, and they see their community involved in their education. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hatcher-Savoy.
Could you repeat the question again, please?
How do your skills and experience prepare you for the duties of the Board of Education?
Okay, the first thing I'd like to do is to create a therapeutic crisis management system. Well, first and foremost, teaching and learning is the first and foremost thing that's important. But then you need a management system, therapeutic management, not just these things that are just coming out of the air. So I would try to create a safe, caring, and supportive environment, proactively prevent crisis from occurring, de-escalate students in crisis, and effectively and safely manage an acute crisis situation, reduce the risk of harm to students and staff and physical restraint if needed, and improve students' coping strategies when faced with stressful situations. Because I've worked in schools in the inner city where children have become so stressed out because of lack of food at home. They know they're going home on a Friday and they're not going to have any food for the weekend. And so they just go off and start tearing up things or attacking people, all kinds of situations like that. And children who are apt to commit suicide because they don't have support from home. So we need to be involved in therapeutic management all the way around in order to help our students to grow. But of course, teaching and learning is always first and foremost, and improving the achievement gap. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Stitt.
Thank you so much. I hope I can fully answer this question. With over 20 plus years of experience in education, spanning pre-K through post-secondary education, I honestly believe that I have a grasp on the major issues that are affecting public schools today, particularly Baltimore County schools. As a parent of 2 children, one recent grad who is going on to Virginia Commonwealth University, I have a firsthand perspective of issues that continue to arise in the school system, and that could be potentially detrimental to the future of all our stakeholders. The county is comprised of diverse communities that should be fully represented and heard, and the landscape of the county continues to change. So my expertise in leadership, organizational responsibility, effective communication, flexibility, and understanding are qualities that I believe are quite beneficial to the Board of Education and the communities in which we serve. As a volunteer and an active member of the Advisory Council and those that I mentioned previously, they've allowed me the opportunity to remain committed to family and community engagement while developing positive relationships between the homes and schools. As a former assistant principal, I am well aware of the needs and of our, not only our scholars, but also for our teachers and our fellow administrators. So having served as a clinical supervisor for teachers who are seeking candidacy, I have a firsthand account on what teachers do experience and what they
30
need
seconds.
in the classroom. In closing, I believe that any member of a school board should be fully committed to advocate for all the stakeholders in which we serve. A conscious member should know the system and be focused on the policies and practices that affect our students, our parents, families, community members, stakeholders across the board, elected officials, and so forth. And I believe that all of my experience and expertise will speak for itself.
Thank you. Ms. Thornton.
Yes, thank you. So I believe that my experiences and expertise in education will make me a strong elected board member because I come from 3 generations of teachers. As I shared earlier, I'm a parent, which has given me the experience of being an advocate for all students as well as my daughter. It's also given me the opportunity to be understanding of the voice of the parent side. So that way I can provide flexibility when discussing needs of parents. I also shared with you that I'm a board certified coach. So with that, I'm a person who can develop actionable goals and set plans to reach those goals. Also a really strong team builder, building cohesiveness with teams. I'm a strategic planner. One of my strengths is that I'm strategic. And so I have the ability to set goals and plans. As I discussed earlier, I'm also a problem solver. I've shared earlier that I'm a faith-based leader, and with that experience, I'm very understanding of differences and uniquenesses of culture and races. And I'm also a community activist as a faith-based leader. And lastly, comes my experiences as an educator. So with that, I understand data-driven, evidence-based, daily operations of a school. I understand small group instruction, policies and procedures in Baltimore County, as well as student achievement, as well as building trust and relationships with students and teachers. I've served as an administrator and assistant principal. And within that, we know daily that things have to change. So I'm very flexible and I'm very adaptable. But most importantly, as I shared earlier, is that one of the things that I think is important as an elected school board member is that I will always put children first prior to me voting and work with all stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question. What do you see as the major educational issues of the county? And how will you use your position on the Board of Education to address these issues? Again, we will begin with Ms. Harvey.
Again, thank you for the question. I think that there are several issues that we have to tackle as a board. I believe one of the most major issues is the recruitment and retention of qualified and certified teachers. We talk about creating environments for our children to learn. We talk about making sure that they all have the opportunity to learn. Well, learning starts with educators. And right now, Baltimore County is bleeding educators, and we do not have the best reputation in terms of recruitment. Morale is low, and the best advertising is word of mouth. So I believe that we need to do some robust recruitment and retention of teachers. That starts with looking at referral programs. Like I said, word of mouth is one of the best ways that we can get teachers to come. It starts at looking at how we are supporting our current educators. That doesn't only include teachers, but that includes support staff and administrators. And we also need to look at what our pipelines are, what they are. Are they the right pipelines? Are they diverse? Are they effective in bringing teachers, qualified, certified teachers to the county? I do believe that the underpinning of success within our school system is foundationally dependent on our
30
educators.
seconds.
That is one of the most important issues that I think we need to work on. I also think we need to enhance parent participation, address the learning loss and performance gap, and also address the allocation of funds. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kindra.
Thank you for the question. So I really think that the pressing issue is that the board and the school system needs to be focused on student success after graduation. We have to make sure that we're preparing students to succeed after they leave our school system. And that is really the pressing issue and the main point that has driven my vision for the schools, which, as I said, is based on the 3 principles of 1, student well-being, 2, equity and inclusion, and 3, educator advocacy, which when combined will ensure that our students do succeed no matter what they do after graduating. As I mentioned earlier, under the student well-being vision or principle, what I really see there is financial literacy and mental health. In order for our students to succeed after graduating, they need to understand how to manage their mental health and how to manage their wealth. And when we do that, we're setting them up to succeed no matter what they go on to do. With equity and inclusion, I'm looking specifically at school infrastructure and the curriculum. So with school infrastructure and resources, in order to prepare all of our students to succeed, we have to make sure that we're equitably spreading around resources, and that includes school infrastructure and school resources such as textbooks and other materials. And we have to really be spending money where it's needed most so that we're really implementing that equity lens so that all students receive an equitable education. And then the second aspect under the equity and inclusion principle has to do with the curriculum. So as I said earlier, from my experience, I understand that the curriculum right now does not reflect the rich diversity of our county. And so we have to make sure that our curriculum is reflective of that rich diversity. That way all students feel included and are getting the full experience of their education. And that way we're preparing
30 seconds.
We're preparing all of our students to succeed no matter where they go on to live or work in our country or in the world, because we've given them a richly diverse curriculum. And then lastly, but certainly not least, with educator advocacy, really has to do with a lot of what Ms. Harvey said before me, which is that we have to be making sure that we're recruiting and retaining the best teachers possible, and that we're giving them the ability to tailor to their classrooms so that they can best prepare their students that they know the best to prepare for success after graduation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Coons.
Thank you, Doctor. So for me, a big core tenet of where I come from is getting back to the basics. Basics is teacher retention and staff retention. It's unfathomable that we are 50% higher loss rate than all the surrounding counties on all the teachers. Like losing 10 to 12% of your teaching force every year and having to start over is unacceptable. There needs to be an understanding of why they're leaving. What is the great flight to Howard or Carroll County or whatever the destinations are, and let's try and reverse course on that. A big driver for me is school performance. Before the pandemic, 60% of 3rd grade students were not at grade level for reading. 57% of 10th graders were not at reading level in Baltimore County. That's pre-COVID. So now we're talking about estimates saying 50% of those who were on grade level are now lost. So are we really proceeding to move 25% of the kids as grade level and 75% are behind? To me, that's not acceptable. We need to find better ways to lift those kids up so that they are not perpetually in a cycle where crime is an answer or no employment is an answer. Additionally, vocational training. Not everything needs a 4-year degree, and almost all of the schools have lost vocational technical training, things like coding. Coding
30
is
seconds.
not a 4-year degree. You can do many things that don't require 4-year degrees. They don't need to go into hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt to find a successful and healthy life. These are things that shouldn't be stigmatized, and we need to work as a school system to encourage those things, which are in high demand for production jobs. You know, welders, and not just welders, but hundreds of different positions that are well-paid union jobs that will help them be successful in life. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lichter,
Dr. Desmond, can you repeat the question, please?
what do you see as the major educational issues of the county? How will you use your position on the Board of Education to address these issues?
Okay, thank you. So I stated my 3 priorities in my introduction as far as increasing student achievement, classrooms where teachers can teach and kids can learn, and then the idea of teacher recruitment. So I'm going to kind of build on what Ms. Harvey said about the importance of teachers. Teacher effectiveness is the most important variable in the success of our students. Our students only succeed due to the work of their teachers. So while we have issues with teachers coming to the county, we also have issues with teachers leaving. Our brand new untenured teachers leave too soon. Our veteran teachers are not staying till retirement. They're also leaving. So ideas for this issue would be to strengthen our relationships between our local colleges and BCPS. Baltimore has lots of colleges in our surrounding communities with teacher education programs, but we're not maximizing those relationships. Students do their internships, their student teaching in our schools, but then when they get that first year in the classroom, their relationship with the university is severed. Why are we not closing that gap and taking the instructors from the college level who have formed relationships with those students and help them as a part of that transition into that very first difficult year? Why are we not equipping cohorts of teachers in our universities with the curriculum they need to teach when they get to BCPS? As a brand new teacher, it is overwhelming what you have to do your first year. You need to learn behavior management. You need to learn how to do grading, working with parents, and then all the different curriculum programs. There are ways for
30 seconds.
teachers to prepare before they get there. We have to use our teacher leaders within our school to help mentor our students, but we have to compensate our teachers for that mentoring. We have experts in the classroom next door, but we need to give them the time and the space to help our new teachers and to build the capacity. We need to build more teacher leaders. They do not need to become administrators, but we can build a cohort of teacher leaders who feel more fulfilled with their job and more compensated for their time.
Thank you. Mr. Roycroft.
Thank you for the question. As a teacher, I know firsthand, as most of the panelists that are teachers can understand, that, like Ms. Lichter said, being a first-year teacher, man, is very, very, very tough. Teachers wear the hats of many positions. You're not just the teacher to the student. You could be their surrogate parent, the aunt, the uncle, their grandparent, their mentor. So you're a lot. Even their counselor. You're a lot to that student. So teacher retention is huge because teachers are leaving not just Baltimore County, but leaving the profession in droves, and it's unfathomable what's going to happen when you don't have enough teachers to teach. But what it will happen is your class size will be so big, it'll be very hard for students to learn. So let's talk about why teachers leave. They lack proper preparation to be in the classroom. When you get a new teacher, they don't have the preparation to be there. Sometimes you take a teacher that may not be qualified or certified, but they have a degree. So they'll hire them because you have to fill these voids at some point. So we have to figure out a way to get these teachers that don't have their certifications or qualifications and let the county help them get their certifications over a certain period of time so that they become highly qualified teachers. Teachers get little support. This is another reason why teachers leave. They get little support. Sometimes you're on an island. You're in the classroom by yourself, 30 kids, and there's no one there to support you. The working conditions, policies, training, and collaboration. Sometimes a new teacher may not get that. Pay. A teacher makes about 20% less than other fields with the same college degrees. That's crazy. We're the ones that create the future. So how can we keep teachers we have? Let's pay them. If you pay them, they want to come. I know they say, oh, the pay doesn't matter. No, the pay does matter. Teachers aren't respected. Our profession is not respected, and it should be. I believe I could give them or work with the board to try to give them a 5% increase over 2 years. Assign new teachers mentors and help guide them through their year. If they have mentors to help guide them through their year, they'll probably stay in the profession. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Hatcher-Savoy.
Okay. One of the main things that I see educational issues is the hiring of minority teachers. Baltimore County does not hire enough minority teachers. The students would do better if they saw people that look like them, and this is proven facts. Also, we hire people that just come for the 1 year and then they're gone. They need to sign contracts that ensure that they will stay. We need to have job fairs and invite people to come that from various colleges across the country, recruit nationwide. Don't just take the first person that comes along. And also parent involvement. That's a major issue. If we could get parents involved in this children's education, they would do 100% better. And I also created parent involvement centers at some of the schools that I worked at. And I think that's a big issue, bringing those parents into the school. If they have a place where they can come and just be to themselves and talk about problems and what have you, that the students would do a lot better. And also, I would suggest that they put more money into the schools. The infrastructure in the schools in my neighborhood is horrible. In fact, they're having 2 graduation ceremonies tonight. I don't want to call the name of the school, but it's in Randallstown. And they had to have 2 because they're in portables, it's overcrowded, it's a horrible mess. So we need to really deal with the infrastructure, and we need to make sure that the money that they
30
do get,
seconds.
and it's spread out across the county and not just in one area. That it just doesn't go to Towson and not to Randallstown or Woodlawn or Catonsville. Okay, well, I thank you for your question.
Thank you. Dr. Stitt.
Thank you so much. I will begin by saying with full transparency that there are a number of issues that are ranging that are in the county that are ranging from the condition of school buildings to, as Mr. Roycroft alluded to earlier, inadequately trained teaching staff, a lack of a diverse teaching staff, school climate and safety issues, to conflicts in assessment practices. And I will also add that we are operating from a pre-COVID mindset as opposed to a post-COVID mindset, which also adds to some of the conflict that and some of the issues that are still plaguing Baltimore County. And I think that many stakeholders are very much fragmented with what can and should be done to benefit the children of the county. I believe that my experience has given me the opportunity to say that first and foremost, if a learning environment is not safe, if it's not clean, if it's not welcoming, then productivity and efficiency is unattainable. That's across the board. That's for scholars, for teachers, and all faculty and staff. I believe that county residents and various stakeholders really need to feel valued in their opinions and their concerns. Educators must be fully knowledgeable of the communities that they serve. I think there's a lack of community building and relationship building that exists, which tends
30
to
seconds.
add some of the confusion. If I were elected as a board member, I think that being actively involved in visiting schools and hearing the concerns of all constituents and all the parties involved, and working on action plans and executing action plans that'll best benefit the entire district is a priority. I believe that also, if I were elected, I would have the capacity to build parent engagement, as one of my colleagues said earlier. I'm sorry, beat the clock.
Thank you, Dr. Stitt. You can finish that sentence if you wish, please.
I was going to say that having that opportunity to build those relationships would give us a fair playing ground as we move into a new school year with all parents, stakeholders, and our students as well. And I think that's a voice that's very much not heard, the student voice. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Thornton.
Yes, thank you for the question. There are a host of educational issues that the candidates have mentioned, but two main things that I think are very important is student achievement, student performance, and the second one that I really want to focus on is safety in the buildings. I think that's a major issue because we talk about teacher retention and students. A lot of times, if teachers aren't feeling safe, they don't want to come into school buildings. So what I would like to see the board focus on is ensuring that school safety is the number one priority. I think we need to look at the whole child. We've talked about mental health. We've talked about pre-COVID and post-COVID. I think that we need to make sure that we are utilizing counselors, school psychologists, our resource officers, life coaches, pediatricians, social workers in all facets, wellness centers, so that we can make sure that we ensure that we are taking care of the whole child, as well as school safety, making sure that we are working collaboratively with parents in the community, ensuring that we have trainings that are available to parents to make them aware of the things that are going on in schools, ensuring that students have an opportunity to participate in extracurricular activities, ensuring that parents also have a full understanding of the policies and the laws that exist here in the state of Maryland, as well as training of teachers, and just making sure that the building overall is safe and that we can eliminate some of the violence that is in the school. And I think right now that should be the focus, and it's one of the main educational issues that we are dealing with right now.
Thank you. The next question relates to academic achievement. As a board member, what will you do to eliminate failure and achievement disparities experienced by minority and students in poverty? We will begin with Ms. Harvey.
So I think it's really important that we first address the issue of learning loss that was created by the pandemic, but not new to many students. We all know about summer learning loss. The pandemic exacerbated that phenomenon for many of our students. And I think ways that we eliminate learning loss, particularly for students whose families are experiencing poverty, and particularly for students of color, is to engage in practices such as high-dose tutoring, providing opportunities for students to engage in experiential learning. We know that students learn differently, and one of the ways that we can close that learning loss gap is to allow them to learn in ways that best suit them. So experiential learning is a very good tool for helping students to learn. Also, I do think that we need to make sure that our summer programs around education, summer school and summer studies are ramped up for students experiencing learning loss so that we can help them be prepared to engage in their next grade level ready. So that's one issue around student performance. I also think that it's important for us to remove prerequisites.
30 seconds.
Of our other learning opportunities like AP classes and gifted and talented classes. We have many students, particularly students of color, who may not have the cultural references for these prerequisites, who may have the talent, the skill, the will, and the drive, but just cannot get through that phase. And I think we miss out on providing that opportunity to many of our students. So removing prerequisites would be another way for students to close the learning gap. Thank you.
Mr. Kindra.
Yeah, so I really want to highlight two ways that we can sort of address the learning gap and improve student achievement, especially for students of color and from impoverished backgrounds. So the first has to do with an inclusive curriculum. What I truly believe is that an inclusive curriculum is an engaging curriculum. And when you have an engaging curriculum, you have a curriculum that students will be actively involved in and want to be a part of. And really, that's not just about teaching about history and sort of social causes. It has to do with the materials that we're providing to students. students. A great example are the textbooks that we use. I'm a law student, and so I do a lot of reading and a lot of complex reading. But I will tell you that reading Beowulf in 8th grade or Canterbury Tales in 9th grade has not helped me at all. And in fact, it was tough to read because it's not relatable to the world we live in today. And that was a common theme with a lot of the literature that we read. And so we really have to look at our curriculum and say, is it inclusive, not just in including information about marginalized communities and their histories and making sure that they're engaged, but also the materials that we're using to teach students, are they ones which the students can actually connect with and engage with? And I can tell you that I don't know of any student that engaged with Canterbury Tales and the Old English that was in it. And then the other thing that we can really do to improve or close that gap and improve student outcomes are to address the divides that we really have come to recognize even more post-pandemic. One that I'd really like to highlight is the tech divide. We always knew that there was tech divide among students, especially from
30 seconds.
from communities of color and from impoverished backgrounds, but we did not realize how deep that divide was. We realize now that it's not just about giving every student the same physical laptop or internet access. It goes deeper than that. It takes an understanding that every student comes with a different level of technological background from their households. And so we have to make sure that in schools we are addressing that gap so that all students, no matter what technological background their parents or household has, they are being taught how to adequately use the technology that we're giving them so that we can help close that digital divide.
Thank you. Mr. Coons.
Dr. Desmond, can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Of course. As a board member, what will you do to eliminate failure and achievement disparities experienced by minority and students in poverty?
Thank you. A big tenet of bringing up the overall performance and scores for me has to be to get children to invest on a personal level for that child, be vested in their own performance and be vested in their own outcomes. That doesn't come from beating them with a stick on, reading and things like that. We have to be creative and make kids want to engage with the learning process. With tools in front of us, with laptops constantly, society has become a little bit lazy, and we have to find ways to engage, to allow the brain development to actually want to solve problems. And for me, that goes to more access and more readily accessible summer school programs, as well as extracurricular, not just sports, not just a social organization, but things like Vex Robotics, things like building clubs, Lego clubs, anything from the littlest thing to largest, build a house, Habitat for Humanity. Things like that should be encouraged as extracurricular programs. Additionally, firsthand, better execution of the existing IEP programs. The county has a pretty abysmal record with actually getting the resources to the place where they're most needed. And that needs a pretty serious addressing from the board down. The schools don't have the proper resources to fulfill the requirements for the IEP programs that already exist. So then they're reluctant to add more children. And so it becomes only the squeakiest of squeaky wheels gets the IEP and the other children are left to languish. And that is across the board from the minority to the poor to everyone in between. And that is something that needs to be improved to build the better future for these kids.
Thank you. Ms. Lichter.
Board members must be committed to the success of every BCPS student, whether they're in your district or not in your district, whether they look like you or they don't look like you. We have to be committed to everyone's success. We have to operate using true equity-minded leadership. We have to request student data. It needs to be presented and it needs to be studied by the board as the entry point for conversations about what resources are available and which students are and are not being served. That's a big issue. When things are purchased, when policies are made, which students is it benefiting and which students are we putting more barriers in place for? Using data would allow underserved student groups to be put at the forefront of the conversation, resulting in their academic needs being prioritized. Barriers impeding student success, we have to remove them. We have to create opportunities for rigorous coursework. But we also have to address, as Ms. Harvey said, the learning loss. And it's going to need to be a multi-year plan, and it's critical to direct resources to manage the academic needs. We need to look at learning loss through the idea of acceleration. We're not going to be able to fill in 2 years worth of missing instructional time, but that involves teachers understanding what grade level standards are, how to assess students as far as what prerequisite skills they're missing, how to quickly fill in those gaps to get students back on grade level and give them that access to grade level skills. Often we pull kids and we have a remediation mindset, and
30 seconds.
and then the gap gets wider and wider. But to do that, we need more specialists in our schools. We need more reading specialists, math specialists, which we've never had, more staff that's able to help us work on those prerequisite skills, which is going to cause the need for more professional learning of our teachers, and more time for grade level collaboration to assist them in planning for students' gap in learning.
Thank you. Mr. Roycroft.
Yes. Having high expectations for all students, regardless of their ability or disabilities, got to have it. Help all students feel like they're part of a school community. Assess the learning styles of the student population, keeping in mind that different does not mean inferior. Students are motivated to compete with themselves to meet higher self-determined goals. Understand why and how students get behind and develop a plan. Well, the plan to close that achievement gap for minority and underserved students, one, let's bring in some of these college students for tutoring. That also can be your way to find if you can recruit or not. Because once they come in and help tutor, they might say, you know what, I done found my calling. I really like that job. And they might just turn around and be a teacher one day. Who knows? They might change their major. But bringing these colleges in to help our students would be great. I hate to say it, but teachers that look like them. I know they say, oh, no, it does make a difference. I represent the 2%, which are black male teachers throughout the country. It's only 2% of black male teachers, and every student in America can probably count on one hand how many black male teachers they will have had in their whole schooling career up to 12th grade. So having teachers that look like them, that can relate to them, because they have this saying, if you can't treat me right, you can't teach me right. So in order to bridge this gap,
30 seconds.
We have to be able to find a way to get these minority students and students underserved areas engaged in the learning. So technology, fix this digital divide, make sure they all have the proper devices and how to use it, not just have it, but how to use it. And being a test score, labeling the kids with a test score is not the way. That's my belief. Most tests are written culturally biased anyway. So most poor kids, they might say push, another one might say shrub. That's the difference. So the test is not always the answer. So we need to try to bridge the gap through several different ways, which is teachers that look like them in college tutoring. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hatcher-Savoy.
Yes, I think we need to create an inclusive curriculum, number one, and have children read books that promote positive thinking about their particular culture and expose them to books and trips and etc. We also must transform teaching techniques that will engage students in their curriculum and make students want to learn. We'll do that through, that can be done through workshops and staff development to increase student learning. And lastly, we must read and study the data. We have to look at the data carefully to see what works and what doesn't work and go from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Stitt.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I will say this. I know that a lot of us have fallen back on the term learning gap, but if we call it what it is, opportunity gap, I think we can have some more courageous conversations behind what is happening in our communities, not only with our children of color, but those children who are special needs and those that are under-resourced and underserved. I will say this, the curriculum is not reflective, and I know that was said earlier, but the curriculum is not reflective of the students, of all the students in Baltimore County, and that needs to change. Additionally, in the Northwest area, we've been fighting for a career and technical education, a school that will afford our young people the opportunity to not only be globally prepared, but to also understand that everyone is not college material. So we need a space for future plumbers, future electricians, and so forth and so on. I think that there are a lot of issues that we need to address as far as, the learning loss that has taken place. But when you look at those communities, it has been longer than 2 years. I know we fall back on COVID and use that as an excuse, but the gap is bigger than 2 years. So once we address that, I think we will level the playing field, and we'll have an opportunity for all students, whether they are in the Northwest, Southwest, Southeast. We'll have an
30
opportunity
seconds.
for all students to be able to not only attain the education that they need, but also see those folks that can educate them, that look like them, but to also have an opportunity to learn outside of what you call a traditional brick and mortar classroom setting. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Thornton.
Yes, thank you. So I think that with the achievement gap for minority students in Baltimore County schools, I think some of the things that we need to focus on, I think Baltimore County is on a good track with the community schools. And like the doctor just mentioned, career and technical education centers, acknowledging that every student is not college bound and that there are other careers that are accessible to children. But I also want to focus on what the community schools will focus on, and which is individualized instruction. And so what we talked about a lot is a curriculum that supports all races and cultures. So I think in order for us to decrease the achievement gap for minorities is to focus on individualized instruction. Data supports that we all learn differently. And so, we talked about opportunities for minority students, and sometimes they don't have some of the same opportunities. So they don't come to school with the same opportunities and same background and same knowledge that some of the other students have. So if we focus on individualized instruction, curriculum that supports all races and cultures, I think that teachers should be given the autonomy to specialize the curriculum based on the data and the needs of the students. We need to do more evidence-based instruction, hands-on experience. We had assemblies and field trips in schools. We often don't support that. When I was growing up, I laugh and joke about this stuff, but who was going to take the hamster home over the Christmas break?
30 seconds.
Those types of things are hands-on experiences. You learn responsibility. Who's going to water the plants in the classroom? So we've come away from those things, and we need to put those things back in the schools, because some minorities, I'm not going to say most, they don't have those experiences when they're at home, right? So they need to get out and be able to experience these things. I think that we need to also, for minority students and families and communities, think about training teachers, additional training for teachers, and also additional training for parents. So thank you.
Thank you. The next question will involve community engagement as well as transparency. How will you, as a board member, work to ensure that there is transparency and accountability from the superintendent and staff, as well as the Board of Education? Ms. Harvey.
Thank you for the question. So I believe that transparency starts with accountability. And one of the ways that we achieve accountability is to start with what are our measurable goals. If we say we want to get from A to B by the beginning of the school year, and we say specifically how we're going to do that in ways that we can measure, then our conversations always are starting with how are we doing? And we have those conversations based on the data, not based on necessarily our thoughts or our speculation, but based on the proof that we can provide. I think transparency is more than just having a conversation. I don't believe that conversations alone achieve much, but there is the accountability piece that allows for transparency to happen. And I do believe that we have to start setting measurable goals and holding ourselves as a board accountable. What are we trying to achieve this year, next year, in the next 4 years? And how are we going to measure our success as a board, as well as what are we saying the school is trying to achieve and how we measure that in ways that can be supported by data? That's the most important way, I think, to establish accountability.
Thank you.
Transparency. Thank you.
Mr. Kindra.
Yeah, so I will, oh, I don't see myself on the screen yet. Oh, there we go. So yeah, again, I'll sort of highlight 2 ways again that I think we can really address this issue. So the first is making the why very clear. So I think that's something that, especially when we saw, not just in Baltimore County, but across the nation during COVID, and when there was discussions about mask mandates and what a return to classroom would look like, oftentimes there's frustration because the why wasn't communicated properly or clearly to stakeholders, including parents. So I think it's incumbent upon the board, when we make a decision, especially on a controversial issue, that we as board members are very clear on the why. Why did we vote this way? What data, what reasoning did we use to arrive at the decision that we made? And I think that's important because it helps the community understand the way that we're thinking, and it allows for better engagement because they can say, I understand that you believe this, or this is why you voted for this, but did you ever think of this perspective, or have you ever considered this? And that's really where you then build that trust and that understanding, and it all comes from communicating the why. The second aspect, which I kind of touched on there towards the end, has to do with understanding the purpose of engagement. So I think it's important as board members and as any elected person, representative person, to understand that you bring one perspective and one lived experience to your job. The board is consisted of 11 members plus the student member who all bring one experience, one life experience, and one perspective. And what we have to understand is that that does not encompass every issue. What that means is that our engagement has to be premised on the assumption that we don't know everything.
30 seconds.
That means that when we engage with stakeholders like parents, PTA groups, civic organizations, we have to go in with an understanding that we are doing so to better understand issues that we otherwise will not fully be able to address from our singular perspective and singular lived experiences. And I think having that notion of why we're engaging, and we're engaging with the purpose to learn more about issues that we may not have expertise on, is key to building that transparency and accountability as to the issues that we're addressing and why we're addressing them.
Thank you. Mr. Coons.
Thank you, Doctor. So for me, the transparency and accountability topic goes in 2 directions. The first is the transparency. What is the school system doing for the child? What is the parent doing for the school system? It is a 2-way street. And for me, one of the things that I would like to champion if I'm elected to the board is a mechanism by which you can not participate necessarily in the PTA, because the PTA is its own entity. But what I would like to do is set up a mechanism by which individual parents can submit concerns to either their local school or the school board, and the school board or the school has a requirement to respond to that concern. That can be everything from concern about food quality, concern about curriculum, whatever that may be. And by having that tool, we can then get the data to make good, healthy decisions on what is best for the children in that school. We are just one set of lived experiences, but as a whole, if we can consolidate that information and actually work together, the children will have a better outcome. We can bring these test scores up. We can have better results. And ultimately, it's going to look better for everyone because the board shepherded good improvement, and at the local level, the parents become more critically involved, and the community becomes more vested in the schools. As far as the accountability,
30 seconds.
The fact that much of what happens is effectively not accounted for, I'd like to see better communication from the board, also from Greenwood, better mechanisms and better ways to actually communicate with the parents. The fact that there's not a more cohesive mechanism for each individual school to communicate in a reasonable bi-directional way is a failure that I think is an easy fix. And that's something that I would like to see as well.
Thank you. Ms. Lichter.
Yes, I think if we have to start again with the data, as several people stated, and we need to look at that data through multiple lenses. Often we don't have the right people in the room when we're making decisions. We need to make sure that we are including all voices in those decisions because we need multiple data points. We need quantitative data points. We also need qualitative. We need to be accessible to hearing what stakeholders are saying, and that may need multiple languages, multiple locations, multiple times a day, not necessarily one time to ask people to come and give their opinions necessarily works. We need to prioritize. As we've all mentioned tonight, there are a lot of priorities in our school system that need to be addressed, and they all feel very urgent, but we can't accomplish everything at one time. So how do we determine what those priorities are? How do we communicate those priorities to the community and explain how we came to those priorities? How do we set metrics so that we can then hold ourselves accountable for monitoring it, progress monitoring, not waiting till 2 years later when the contract's up to say, did it work? But we need those progress monitoring pieces put into the plan. And then we need to be communicating with the public as far as, are we meeting them, and are we meeting them for all student groups? It's very easy to look at data in the aggregate and say, okay, it's working, but we need to look at it student group by student group, because if it's not working for everybody, then we need to make changes before it's too late or before a contract's up. So I think we need to be transparent by bringing the stakeholders
30
in,
seconds.
setting those metrics, progress monitoring, and reporting out. And even if results aren't what we need, I think to be honest as soon as possible will gain the credibility and help us with the accountability.
Thank you. Mr. Roycroft.
Thank you. Can you repeat the question, please?
How will you work to ensure that there is transparency and accountability from the superintendent and staff, as well as the Board of Education?
Okay. First, you have, I'm gonna say what we have, boots on the ground. All right, so you're gonna have people that are already there to tell you the things that are needed to ensure the school leaders are trying to connect with local businesses, nonprofit foundations, and other groups in the community for volunteers to come during, before, and after the school day. With those people, with their boots on the ground, they can tell you what's going on and have an informed decision so that the board can make informed decisions and not just a decision without knowing anything that's going on in the schools that's happened throughout the day. We can use that data to see what worked and what didn't, and we can share it with others. The community members may not be aware of what the needs of the schools are. So if the community members aren't aware, there's no way they can share. So to make them aware, you'll never know unless you communicate that. So I believe those school leaders can go out, because they're already there, to the community, find out what the needs are, and then share with the board. Because no two schools will have identical and successful connections. So what we can do as a board to find out what is actually happening with your school, and we can say, okay, what happened with your school? Let's go ahead and share that same connection with another school, because they may be able to work with that school too. And that will hold the board accountable for making those decisions and being able to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hatcher-Savoy.
Okay, the first thing that we should do is set goals, and then we must engage with the stakeholders involved. The whole school community must be involved. And we must problem solve at the schools, everybody plan and decision make, and engage stakeholders in service delivery. That's the only way that it can work. The goals have to be set, and that will be done with parenting, communicating, volunteering, learning at home, decision making, collaborating with the community. I'm trying to think. I had it all in my head and it seems to be rolling away now. Okay, we have to understand the community at first. Okay, and we have to have the goals, and we have to ask, how are we going to measure what we've done after it's been done? That would be the transparency. What levels of engaging in that, and who would be responsible for that? And we have to make it easy to participate, and we have to be consistent and thoughtful of everybody's ideas. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Stitt.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. I think, quite honestly, one of the the elephant in the room is that there's an air of mistrust between the community, the school community, and the board, as well as the leadership of Baltimore County Public Schools. And with that, I think a number of things need to happen. So when you're building community, there has to be a voice. There has to be a forum for parents, community stakeholders, students to express their concerns and their needs as well. And I think once we establish that voice, and once we have, as someone said earlier, executed an action plan, I think that we not only transparency will take place, but there will also be a rebuilding of confidence and trust with the board. As a Northwest Area Advisory Council member, we have had the opportunity to hold a number of forums where we can hear the concerns of stakeholders in the second district. And when you hold those forums and you have the opportunity to hear what's happening, not only is mistrust is eliminated, but it's also an opportunity for parents to hear what's happening on the leadership side as well. I think, honestly, one of the issues that we have as far as the community engagement is that parents don't feel welcome. And I'll say
30 seconds.
I'll say that with a clear heart and a clear mind. I'm one of those parents. I have a child in a school where I don't feel welcome, and I have a teacher who actually said it as well, that there's a disconnect that takes place. So once the connect between the teachers, the families, the school takes place, and I think there will be the opportunity for transparency, and there will continue to be the opportunity for growth in the district.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Thornton.
Yes, thank you. And so when we talk about transparency and accountability on the board, I'm going to echo some of the things that some of the previous candidates have mentioned. I think that we need to look at what outcomes we want to accomplish. Someone mentioned that we need to talk about building trust. We need to make sure that we are listening to one another, that we feel safe with communicating with all stakeholders and board members, as well as the advisory board that assists the Board of Education, and an opportunity to allow grace and mercy for mistakes. I think that, we talk about the elephant in the room and we talk about the tension, but, one of the things that we don't see, or what I have not observed, I can speak about myself, is transparency and accountability on the current board, because when we talk about accountability, we talk about choices for their actions. And I feel like our schools and teachers, and most importantly, our students, are suffering because we don't have transparency and accountability on the board currently, because there's just so much tension that we've just lost focus of students. And so I think that it's important for us to rewire ourselves, to refocus ourselves as we want to become elected officials on the school board. As an elected school board member, that is going to be one of my main focuses, is ensuring that there is collaboration and cohesiveness. We don't always have to agree, but we need to make sure that we are focused on the right thing. So thank you.
Thank you. We are out of time for the formal question and answer portion of the program. So now we will move to the candidates' closing statements. We will begin with Ms. Harvey at this time. Ms. Harvey.
Once again, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and the Randallstown NAACP for providing this opportunity to get to know me as a candidate for the Board of Education for District 1, and for just having this much needed conversation about the state of education in Baltimore County. So I think foundationally, it's very important for us to understand that as a school system, we are only going to succeed as much as every school succeeds. And so I really believe that there needs to be a foundation set for standards that every school must achieve, and that we need to use that data to focus our resources and our efforts on those schools to close achievement gaps, to have more equity, inclusion, to have more supports for students who learn differently and have special education needs. I think we need to eliminate opportunity hoarding within our school system and make sure that all schools get what they need before we start allocating resources to get above and beyond and what schools want. It's important for us to make sure that we have robust parent participation. Parents should not feel like guests in their children's schools. They are an important part of the ecosystem, and if we don't start including parents in a more
30 seconds.
then our schools will continue to be disconnected. I also think it's important that we commit to having certified, qualified teachers, particularly in our core curriculum classes, because if we are serious about closing the opportunity gap, we need to recruit teachers to teach those classes that are certified and trained. And I also believe that we need to create safe, supportive environments in schools. Thank you again for the opportunity, and have a good night.
Thank you. Mr. Kindra.
Oh, awesome. So thank you again for having us and putting together this wonderful forum where we could all, put some really great questions. I just want to again highlight that we have such a unique opportunity coming out of this pandemic. The pandemic was terrible, but the silver lining to it is, or one of it, is that we have an incredible opportunity now to really reimagine what our education looks like. And I think we have to make sure that when we're doing that, we're charting a future that prepares all of our students to succeed, and that it truly lives up to the promise of giving every student a world-class education. But focusing on the three principles I laid out earlier of 1, student well-being, 2, equity and inclusion, and 3, educator advocacy, we can really create an education system that is responsive, equitable, and forward-thinking, and does just that. It will provide every student with a quality, world-class education that will set them up to succeed no matter what they go on to do after graduating from our schools. I hope that I can earn your support today or before the primary so that I can help bring a unique perspective to the board that will really help make sure that that is the future that we chart. As a former student who experienced these problems for 13 years and lived through them, who can now see as a young adult what issues in the schools really persist into adulthood if they're not addressed. As someone who understands what the world demands of young people today, the skills that we need and the knowledge that we need, as someone who understands all that, I can bring that to bear on the Board of Education and really make sure that what we're doing is preparing all of our students to succeed in today's 21st century world where they require unique
30
skills.
seconds.
And to make sure that, again, we are living up to the solemn promise that we have as a school system, which is to provide a quality education for all of our students, again, by making sure that we're focusing on their well-being, that we're prioritizing equity and inclusion, and that we're there advocating for our teachers so that we can retain the best of the best and have the best classroom experience for our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Coons.
Thank you, Dr. Desmond. I want to thank everyone who sat through this Zoom meeting, all the other candidates, everything. It's a lot. I'm not a politician, so this is fun. I'm learning a lot. There's a lot of really knowledgeable people here. For me, it really comes down to foundational building blocks of what's going to make a productive human being. Your background, with the proper assets and tools, you can overcome many, many things as a person. We are very resilient as a species, and we need to encourage that and not say to the impoverished that you will never get out of it, because that's not true, and that should not be true. And it is a core tenet of BCPS, or Baltimore County Board of Education, that's our job, to build those children up and to give them the productive tools that they need. To do that, really, though, there has to be a strong foundation. You can have the tallest building in the world, but without a good, strong reading, writing, math, arts, language foundation, the rest of it is moot. They have to be able to read. The fact that 75% of our kids are not on grade, and it was 60% not on grade prior to COVID. So we weren't doing a great job then, as Dr. Stitt said, and we're not doing it now. And as a parent, I am a fresh set of eyes. I am coming from external the education system. hopefully we can all work together and actually find good, productive ways to improve it.
30 seconds.
The safety is paramount. One thing that I have seen is that COVID has maladjusted everyone. Everyone has social concerns and social cues that are broken. And we really need to reinforce good social cues, good social coping mechanisms for the children, for the teachers. The teachers shouldn't be afraid to go to work. That's point blank. They shouldn't be afraid to go to work. But overall, it's really just building a really strong base of good practices and good people to bring these kids up.
Thank you. Ms. Lichter.
All parents and guardians should feel confident that when they send their children to a BCPS school, that they're going to receive a high-quality instructional program in a safe and secure environment. It shouldn't matter the color of their skin. It shouldn't matter what their primary language is. It shouldn't matter the supports they need or the zip code they live in. BCPS must commit to a vision of high expectations for student achievement, where our curriculum, our instruction, and our assessments are inclusive and engaging and yielding positive outcomes for all students. Our classrooms have to be free of distractions, allowing our teachers to teach and our students to learn. We must attract the best candidates and ensure their longevity and career satisfaction within the system. These priorities require identified benchmarks of success and actionable improvement plans. As board member, it will be my role to advocate for what is needed to accomplish the benchmarks, monitor the data that tracks progress, and hold the system accountable for doing the work and getting the results. In addition, it is critical that as a member of the BCPS Board of Education, that I work with my board colleagues to make certain a positive and productive working relationship exists between the Board of Education, the superintendent, and the staff. My knowledge of teaching and learning as a career educator allows me the critical eye to ask the difficult and relevant questions, study data and other pertinent information, listen intently to stakeholders, and make certain that the focus and urgency of the board remains on improving student
30 seconds.
My experiences have provided me firsthand insight into the work taking place in school buildings, and this experience will allow for a quick and seamless transition into the position as board member, ready to do the hard work from day one. My commitment to BCPS is deep-rooted. I've lived in District 2 my entire life. I've worked in the system my entire career. I am eager to be part of the solution, to give back to my community, to roll up my sleeves, and to help restore BCPS to a status of high academic excellence. Thanks for inviting me tonight.
Mr. Roycroft.
I want to thank the League of Women Voters, the NAACP of Randallstown, the moderator, Dr. Desmond, and all of the candidates for sharing their knowledge and their ideas for Baltimore County schools. If I'm voted to the school board, I will build relationships with other board members to collaborate, sharing our thoughts, ideas, and experiences. I will ensure that the voices of educational decision-making will be heard. I will support the views of teachers, students, parents, administrators, and the community to move our county forward. Again, I'm George Roycroft, running for Baltimore County School Board District 1. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Hatcher-Savoy.
Yes, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and the NAACP for this invitation tonight. I'd like to leave you with this thought that for me, teaching and learning is first and foremost. That will be my goal, and that parents are involved. And safety for every child in every school, that no child comes to school and not feel safe. And I'd like to thank everyone again and for listening to my thoughts and my voice. I am a candidate for the school board in District 4. I'm asking for each of you to give me your support and your vote on July 19th. I will be an asset to you. And keep this one thing in mind. If you're going into surgery, do you want a doctor or an intern to perform it? 36 years of experience here in public education. Thank you so much. And juvenile detention. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Stitt.
Yes, ma'am. I first want to say thank you to all the candidates who bravely sat here through this forum. We have a plethora of experience and expertise that will benefit the board in numerous ways. I'm like Mr. Coons, I am not a politician. I don't stand on a soapbox, and I don't, I'm not searching for anyone to vote for me because I know this person or I know that person. I am passionate about education. I come from a community of educators. I come from a family of educators. I'm a proud product of community schools in New York City, and therefore I stand very firmly in all that I have said earlier and all that I believe in. My experience with those in underserved and under-resourced and urban populations gives me a gift that many people may not understand and may not have. And I think that is the experience that will benefit a number of our communities throughout Baltimore County. In addition, I value relationship building. I value the voice of parents. As a parent myself, I value the voice of educators. I am still an educator. I'm a lifelong learner. And I believe that all of my experience and expertise and the passion that I have for education will be the catalyst for me being elected to the board. And I appreciate you all. My name is Dr. Lashaune Stitt, and I am running for District 2 School Board member.
Thank you. Ms. Thornton.
Yes, thank you again. And I just want to thank the League of Voters and the Randallstown NAACP again for hosting this event. And I also want to thank the participants who sat through and listened to our responses. I greatly appreciate it. And I also want to thank you for your patience as my lovely cat Burrito has made her appearance several times on the screen. Thank you for your patience. I just want to echo that I'm a third generation of teachers in education. I mentioned that I'm a board certified coach. I'm a faith-based leader, former assistant principal, mentor, teacher, as well as a mother of a Baltimore County Public School graduate, which has allowed me a lot of unique experiences within the community and within the schools. Most importantly, I have a huge and wonderful passion for education. I genuinely care for children. But the main thing I do want you to remember about me is that with my experience in education and expertise within the community, if I'm elected to the board, I would be able to use those experiences and that expertise to make a sound decision and vote for the students and teachers in Baltimore County, as well as bring some awareness to some of the other board members who may not have that experience or that education. A lot of times we put a lot of faith and trust in people to make decisions for children and teachers in our school system who really don't have the knowledge, the background, or the expertise to do that. So I'm asking that, you would trust me enough to elect me to the board in District 4, because I think that based on my unique experiences, I would be an asset to the board. And my name again is Autrese Thornton, and I'm running for Board of Education in District 4. Thank you.
Thank you again to all of the participants in this evening's forum. As of this time, we will return you to our hostess, Ms. Erica McDonald, who will.
Thank you to our audience members and for your questions and for participating in tonight's program. And thank you for our candidates for participating in the forum and serving as an example of civil discourse. You've given Baltimore County residents a great deal to think about as we vote in July. I would like to thank our forum committee for arranging this event and the NAACP of Randallstown for co-sponsoring this forum. In the next few days, recordings of this forum will be available on the League website as well as our YouTube channel and on the vote411.org site. Primary election day is July 19th, and early voting begins on July 7th, and all voting ends on July 19th at 9 p.m. Vote 411 is the online voters guide from the League of Women Voters and is a one-stop shopping site for everything about your local ballot, candidate positions in their own words, polling places, and more. Hard copies of our voters guides will be available soon at branches of the Baltimore County Public Library, senior centers, Head Start centers, college campuses, and more. And electronically, it's available online on the League website as a PDF if you're interested in sharing it. We hope that you will consider joining the League of Women Voters of Baltimore County and the Randallstown NAACP. And thank you again for coming, and have a good night.
Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks
Thank
very
you.
much.
Everyone be blessed.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a
Appreciate
good
it. Thank you.
evening.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.